ever feel like you're just waiting for that motivation to hit, to finally tackle that goal, but it just never seems to come?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, today we're diving deep into motivation.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, it's not about chasing some magical feeling.
Right.
We're joined by an expert to break down this awesome conversation between Stephen Bartlett, the entrepreneur behind Diary of a CEO,
Yeah.
and Mel Robbins, who, let's be honest, is a total powerhouse when it comes to motivation.
She really is. And she doesn't sugarcoat anything. Like, she straight up says motivation is garbage.
Oh, okay. Motivation is garbage.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bold statement. I'm definitely intrigued, but also kind of scared.
Right.
Because I think we've all been there waiting for that motivation fairy dust, but it never seems to show up.
Exactly. And Mel Robbins is all about ditching the fairy dust and understanding how our brains actually work.
Okay, I'm listening.
She says instead of waiting for motivation, we got to understand the chain reaction already happening in our heads.
A chain reaction. Okay, so walk me through this. What's the science behind it?
Okay, so picture this. It starts with a sensation, like your alarm going off in the morning.
Ugh, the worst.
Right. Then you perceive that sensation, okay, it's time to wake up.
Right.
But here's where it gets interesting. That perception triggers an emotion. Maybe it's dread, maybe you're excited, or maybe you just hit snooze for the 5th time.
Hitting snooze is a very real emotion.
Totally. And that emotion, it leads to a thought, which then finally sparks action or inaction, as the case may be.
So you're saying that our actions are basically the result of this whole neurological domino effect. It makes sense, but it also makes you feel kind of less in control,
Right.
Like we're just at the mercy of whatever our brain decides to do.
I totally get that. That's a common misconception. But here's the good part. Mel Robbins says we can actually hack the system.
Oh.
We don't have to wait for the feeling. We create it by taking action, even if it's the last thing we want to do.
So you force yourself to do it, even if you don't feel like it.
Exactly. She calls it the 5-second rule. It's all about interrupting that hesitation and just doing it before your mind talks you out of it.
It's like that old saying, just do it, but backed by science.
Exactly.
I've totally experienced this. Sometimes I'll be putting off going for a run, but then I just force myself to put on my shoes and get out the door.
Yeah.
And most of the time, once I'm actually running, I end up enjoying it.
There you go. Action often comes before the motivation. You don't need to feel it first. You create it by taking that first step, even if it's tiny.
So it's like you're retraining your brain to connect action with positive feelings. You're rewiring the system from the inside.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense for going for a run. But what about bigger changes, the things that feel really scary and overwhelming? How does this 5-second rule work for those?
That's where Mel's story about her son's prom night comes in.
Oh.
It's a hilarious story, but it really shows this principle in action.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me everything. What happened at prom?
It was total prom night chaos. Running late, trying to find the right shoes, the whole deal. And then a massive hailstorm hits right as Mel's son and his date are heading out the door.
Oh no, every parent's nightmare.
Right, total pandemonium. But here's where the 5-second rule and Mel's ability to take action really come in. So she's about to jump in, try to fix the situation, when her daughter, Kendall, says 2 words that change everything.
Okay, I gotta know. What were the magic words?
Let them.
Let them. Interesting. So her daughter's basically telling her to just embrace the chaos, let go of control.
Exactly. And for Mel, who admits she used to be a total control freak, those 2 words were like a lightning bolt.
Wow.
It was the birth of what she now calls the let them theory. This idea that we should let go of the need to control everything and everyone.
Okay, I love the sound of that.
Yeah.
But how do you actually let them in everyday life? What does that even look like?
Well, it's like this. A lot of our stress comes from, trying to control things we just can't control.
Oh, tell me about it.
Like the weather on prom night or what other people do. It's just not in our hands.
It's so true. We've all been there. Obsessing over things we can't change, trying to force things to go our way.
Right.
And we just end up driving ourselves crazy.
Exactly. We wear ourselves out, our relationships suffer, and in the end, we still can't control the outcome.
So what's the solution?
That's where the let them theory comes in. It's about radical acceptance, choosing to focus on the things we can control.
Like what?
Our own actions, our reactions, our boundaries, those are things we have power over.
Okay, that makes sense. But isn't there a danger in that? If you're always letting them have their way, won't people just walk all over you?
I get that. It's a balance, right? It's not about being a pushover. It's about recognizing that our energy is valuable and not wasting it on stuff that just drains us. Mel talks about this idea of an emotional force field, especially when you're dealing with difficult people.
Ooh, emotional force field. I like the sound of that. How do we build one?
It starts with awareness. So when you feel yourself getting triggered or pulled into someone's drama, you take a step back. Just remind yourself you have a choice. You don't have to engage. You don't have to absorb their energy.
Right, right. It's like they say, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to protect your own energy first.
Exactly. And when you come from that place, that place of inner strength and self-awareness, the whole dynamic changes. People can feel it when you're not playing their game.
Yeah, like they can sense that force field you've got up.
Exactly. And you free yourself up to focus on what really matters, your growth, your happiness, what you're here to do.
So let them isn't just about giving other people freedom, it's about getting your own back.
100%. And this whole conversation about purpose and letting go, it made me think about something else. Mel talks about hope. She says a lot of people stay stuck because they don't have hope. They don't believe things can actually get better.
That's so true. It's like when you're facing this huge obstacle, it feels impossible to overcome. So you just lose sight of the possibility that things could change.
Right, you just feel defeated.
Like change isn't even an option.
Exactly. And that's where hope comes in, that little spark of belief that things can get better, even if you can't see how right now. Mel talks about how powerful stories are, hearing about other people who've gone through similar struggles and come out the other side.
It's like those stories remind us that we're not alone, that change is possible.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be some incredible transformation story. Sometimes it's just about sharing our own experiences, even the messy ones, and realizing we're not alone in our struggles.
There's something so powerful in that, being vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Brene Brown says, shame can't survive being spoken.
I love that quote. And Mel's work really embodies that. She's real about the hard stuff, but always brings it back to hope, to believing we can change.
And believing in that change, I think, comes from understanding yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, even those little quirks that make you, you.
Totally.
Which brings me to something else Mel talks about that really clicked with me. The difference between being driven and being dragged.
Yes. Such an important difference. What resonated with you about that?
It's like so many of us, myself included, we get caught up in that being dragged feeling Mel talks about, right? Like we're just on autopilot, doing, but not really living with intention.
Yes. It's like we're chasing something, but it's always out of reach. And Mel has this interesting take on uncovering those true desires. She says to pay attention to jealousy.
Jealousy. Really, I feel like that's not something we usually think of as a good thing.
I know, right? It seems kind of counterintuitive. But she says those pangs of jealousy, they're like little arrows pointing us towards things we secretly want, but maybe we've buried them deep down.
Oh, I see. So it's like jealousy can be a guide.
Exactly, this hidden compass. But it's not enough to just feel jealous. Mel says we got to take action. She suggests this exercise, a life inventory.
Okay, what's that?
Grab a notebook or something and just list out all the different areas of your life, relationships, career, personal growth, anything that's important to you.
So like a dashboard for your life.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the key. You rank each area, like on a scale of 1 to 10, but you don't just give it a number. You got to explain why. So if you give your career like a 7, what's making it a 7? What would an 8 or a 9 look like? Really dig deep.
That's smart. It forces you to get real with yourself, figure out what's actually working and what needs some love.
Right. And once you have that clarity, you can start setting goals that actually matter to you.
It's like you're saying.
Yeah.
You can't get to where you want to go if you don't know where you're starting from.
100%. And, sometimes even when we have a plan, we still feel lost.
Totally.
And in those moments, it's helpful to remember that everyone's got their own unique challenges. And sometimes those challenges, they come from something deeper.
Yeah, and Mel's really open about that in her own life, right? Like with her ADHD diagnosis.
Yes. Getting diagnosed later in life was huge for her. It helped her understand why she always felt different, why her brain just worked differently.
And that's got to be especially significant for women because ADHD often looks different in women. It's way more likely to be missed or misdiagnosed.
Definitely. Mel talks about how so many women go undiagnosed, their struggles just brushed off. And one of the biggest misconceptions about ADHD is that it means you can't focus.
But that's not really it, is it?
Nope. Mel uses this great analogy. Imagine an orchestra warming up, all these different instruments making noise, right? And then the conductor walks in and everyone goes silent. So the conductor's job is to direct attention,
Okay, I'm with you.
So with ADHD, it's like that conductor gets easily distracted.
So it's not that you can't focus, it's that your focus is going a million different directions at once.
Exactly. And for Mel, understanding that was life-changing. It wasn't a limitation, it was just a different way of experiencing the world.
That's a great way to look at it. And I think it's a great note to end on, too. It's like Mel's saying, those things that make you different, they're not weaknesses. They're your superpowers.
Totally. And sometimes just realizing that, just sharing those struggles, those feelings that you think you're alone in,
Mm.
that can be the first step to making real change.
It's like that saying, the things you're most afraid to share are often the things that make you the most powerful.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that was amazing. Big thanks to our expert for breaking down this awesome conversation and sharing these incredible insights with us today. Remember, motivation isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about creating it. So get out there, take action, and let's unlock our full potential together.